Steve Wozniak never set out to be famous. His passion was combining simple components, as few as possible, and making them work together to perform complex tasks. Born in 1950 in California, he was exposed to electronics from a young age, largely due to the profound influence of his father, Francis Jacob Wozniak. Jerry, as he was known, was also an engineer and worked in the missile program at Lockheed during the height of the Cold War. Because of this, Woz wasn't even allowed to ask about his father's job. But through these experiences, it was always conveyed that ethics were of extreme importance. Even before the age of 4, Steve's father nurtured his curiosity by letting him tinker with electronic components and patiently explaining the principles behind them. From analyzing waveforms on an oscilloscope to understanding how light bulbs and transistors worked, these lessons gave Steve both the technical knowledge and an amazingly intuitive grasp of electronics. His early passion for engineering grew through collaborations with the electronics kids, neighborhood friends who shared his interests. Using salvaged components, they built ambitious projects, including a house-to-house intercom system which allowed the children to communicate secretly. Wozniak's fascination with computers began in 4th grade, when he read about the ENIAC in one of his father's engineering journals. The ENIAC, the Electronic Numerical Integrator and Computer, was one of the world's first true computers, developed in the 1940s primarily to calculate ballistic firing tables for the U.S. Army. By high school, he was studying mini-computer manuals and redesigning them on paper to improve their efficiency. Though he couldn't build his ideas due to a lack of parts, this self-taught practice sharpened his design skills and laid the foundation for his later breakthroughs in personal computing. Part 1. Two Steves. A few years later, while taking a break from college, Woz found an opportunity at a company called Tenet, where he took a programming job. Writing code in Fortran, which he had learned in high school, this was the first time he had access to real hardware and could see his ideas come to life on a machine. As Tenet was unfortunately going out of business that summer, a chance encounter led Woz to tell one of the executives at the company about his computer designs on paper and how he was unable to build them due to not having the right parts. To his surprise, the executive said that he could get him the parts, and because Woz didn't want to ask for too many of them, he set out to design the smallest possible computer, something he could build with just a handful of chips. Woz took the chips home and began building a simple computer, one he could complete with just around 20 chips. He teamed up with his friend Bill Fernandez, and together they assembled it piece by piece in Bill's garage. After long afternoons of soldering, they'd ride their bikes to the Sunnyvale Safeway for Cragmont Cream Soda, which gave the project its name, the Cream Soda Computer. It was a tiny circuit board, just a few inches wide, with no screen or keyboard, using punch cards for input and flashing lights for output. But it ran real programs, including one that could make the machine beep every 3 seconds. Yet one unexpected outcome of the Cream Soda Computer was that it led Woz to meet Steve Jobs for the first time. Bill Fernandez, who was friends with both of them, thought they'd get along. Both were into electronics and both had a love for pulling pranks. So one day, Bill invited Jobs over to his house. Woz, then 20, and Jobs, 17, ended up sitting on the sidewalk for hours, swapping stories about the pranks they pulled and gadgets they built, as their love for Dylan rather than the more popular Beatles. Steve Wozniak was used to people not really understanding the technical work he did, but Jobs got it instantly. Soon after, the two Steves began collaborating, both on pranks and building electronics. When Woz discovered the world of phone phreaking through an article in Esquire magazine, he brought the idea to Jobs, and it immediately resonated with their shared interests. Before the advent of the internet, an underground movement called phone phreaking, spelled with a PH, took shape. It attracted tech-savvy individuals who discovered ways to make free long-distance calls by exploiting the network's inherent design. At the heart of this exploration was the legendary blue box, a device capable of generating the precise tones needed to control the phone system's routing. Woz set out to design and build his own blue box, testing circuits and fine-tuning the device until he had a working model. Once it proved successful, it wasn't long before Steve Jobs, ever the entrepreneur, came up with the idea to sell the machines. This small but bold scheme became their very first business venture together, foreshadowing the partnership that would later transform the world. Part 2. Apple. In early 1973, Steve Wozniak landed a prized position at Hewlett-Packard, a company he deeply admired for its engineering-centric culture and its pioneering work. There, Woz's primary focus was on designing scientific calculators, a revolutionary product for its day. During this time, he attended the very first Homebrew Computer Club meeting in 1975. This gathering of enthusiasts was a revelation. While Woz thought it was a meeting for more advanced projects, like the fully functional Pong game he had built, it turned out that the group was fixated on the Altair computer. The Altair was a very simple machine that had few practical uses at the time, and Woz realized that it was remarkably similar to the cream soda computer he had built years prior, except it was being sold commercially, to great success. Witnessing this and realizing the exorbitant cost of the Altair and its necessary accessories to make it truly functional, Woz struck a new ambition: to build his own computer. Fueled by his experience at Homebrew and disillusioned by the high cost and limited functionality of the Altair, Steve Wozniak set out to build a computer that was affordable, elegant, and accessible. He did this by designing a machine that replaced front panels with a keyboard and integrated output to a standard television, making interaction intuitive, just like typing and reading a screen. Despite the breakthrough nature of his work, Wozniak didn't initially see it as a product. His instinct was to share it. He handed out schematics and explained the system to anyone interested. He wanted others to build their own versions, to explore, to learn, to innovate alongside him. But Steve Jobs saw something different: an opportunity to bridge the gap between innovation and market demand. He realized that while many at Homebrew were inspired by the design, few had the time or skill to assemble a computer from a pile of diagrams. Jobs proposed a pivotal shift. Rather than giving away the plans, they should sell fully assembled printed circuit boards, a ready-to-use product built around Woz's design. This new direction required significant resources. To fund the creation of the first circuit boards, Woz sold his prized HP 65 calculator and Jobs his VW van, the combined funds forming their initial seed capital. Their fledgling venture needed a name, and after considering various technical options, they settled on Apple Computer. With limited resources and a bold new vision, they were officially in business. Their big opportunity arrived when Jobs secured a crucial order from the Byte Shop, a local computer store. The owner wanted to buy 100 Apple I computers for $500 each, which allowed them to pay for the necessary microprocessors, memory chips, and other parts. The Apple I stood out because it was simple, affordable, and ready to use. Unlike other computers at the time, it came fully built and could be used with a regular keyboard and TV, making it much more accessible to everyday users. It also started up on its own, without needing complex setup, making personal computing more practical than ever before. Part 3. Onwards. In early 1976, Apple had sold more than 100 Apple I computers to several stores around the country, and Steve Wozniak set out to build its successor, the Apple II. It would be a powerful, user-friendly home computer, 10 times better than the Apple I. It featured built-in color graphics, faster memory, several expansion slots, and came ready to use with a keyboard, plastic case, and the basic programming language. Designed for both hobbyists and everyday users, it set a new standard in personal computing. Recognizing a need for expanding their operations, the entrepreneurs sought financial backing. And after a few rejections, Mike Markkula, a retired Intel executive, saw the potential of the product and invested $250,000 as well as a business plan for Apple's future. Markkula's belief in their vision supercharged the project. "We're going to be a Fortune 500 company in 2 years," he told them. "This is the start of an industry. It happens once a decade." Ahead of his time, he imagined a world where computers were not just for corporations or labs, but for homes, living rooms, and offices. Families would use computers to type letters, store recipes, and even educate their children. The West Coast Computer Fair in January 1977 marked the public debut of the Apple II. Wozniak presented his groundbreaking design, showcasing its color graphics and user-friendly interface, which immediately set it apart from competitors. This introduction was a pivotal moment, signaling the arrival of a truly personal and accessible computer. Wozniak's design decisions for the Apple II, particularly its open architecture with 8 expansion slots and robust documentation, fostered an ecosystem of innovation. It allowed third-party developers to create a wide range of software and hardware accessories, from games to business applications and peripherals, further enhancing the Apple II's appeal and versatility. The introduction of VisiCalc, a revolutionary spreadsheet program that could only run on a few systems, including the Apple II, due to its ample RAM, transformed the computer's market. This powerful business software attracted a massive new audience, shifting Apple's focus from hobbyists to professionals and causing sales to skyrocket from thousands to tens of thousands of units per month. The 1980s saw Apple experience phenomenal growth, fueled by the Apple II's continued success and the burgeoning personal computer industry. By 1980, Apple had sold its millionth computer, becoming a dominant force. This success culminated in Apple's IPO in December 1980, which was the most successful up to that point. The event made Apple a legendary company, generated immense wealth for its founders and employees, and firmly established the personal computer as a transformative technology. Epilogue. Apple's recent history is better known. Steve Jobs' ousting and return after the next acquisition to mark the launch of iconic products like the iPod, iPhone, and iPad. These innovations, guided by Jobs' vision and Apple's commitment to tightly integrated hardware and software, redefined personal technology and solidified the company as a global leader in consumer electronics. Yet Steve Wozniak stepped back from daily operations in 1985, though he remains officially employed by Apple, earning the company's lowest possible salary. This symbolic role allows him to stay connected to the company he co-founded in order to represent Apple at events and continuing to share his passion for human-centered technology. Shortly after leaving, he founded Cloud9 to develop the first universal remote control and has also been involved with a number of ventures focused on innovation and education. From supporting STEM initiatives to funding school computer labs, his efforts reflect a continued passion for empowering others through technology. His legacy goes far beyond his engineering feats. His design philosophy, rooted in simplicity, elegance, and accessibility, remains a guiding principle in modern technology. His foresight helped shape the future of personal computing, often anticipating trends like color graphics, user interfaces, and user-centric design long before they were mainstream. In an industry often driven by ego and profit, Steve Wozniak stood apart, an engineer's engineer who built for the sheer love of it. He cared more about solving problems and sharing knowledge than chasing headlines or power. Through it all, he remained true to himself, humble, generous, and deeply passionate about using technology to make life better. This was iWoz by Steve Wozniak with Gina Smith, first published in 2006. Thanks for listening.